Hello, good evening, good morning, good night, somewhere around there. Welcome back to another Random Witchcraft episode. Today, we'll be discussing Mabon, the Harvest Festival, the Elysian Mysteries, other people call it, or the autumnal equinox. Whatever you may call it, it's a celebration that's going to be coming soon. It's usually a celebration that either gets celebrated on September 20th or the 21st, and usually for about 3 days, depending on what area of the world you're in. It's usually celebrated for 3 days, not the original old way that was celebrated for several weeks. But we'll be discussing the old ways, the new ways in this episode today to understand where some of the rituals come from, where some of the games, certain things like that. Now, you can't end up understanding something without going back to the beginning. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a rhyme. Oh my god, forgive me. My brain's a little scattered today, but let's be honest, that's just an everyday thing. And getting first into the old ways, when they first started to do the festival, the Harvest Festival, is very unpredictable. They didn't yet follow or understand the seasonal changes, or why we end up having longer summers and then shorter days where the dark consumed light. And also the reason why it took several weeks in the old days for the Harvest Festival was because they first started off with a festival of all the workers on the landowner or the lord of the manor's property. And it was a small community of people that lived on somebody's property, paid taxes, or gave them some form of payment, rent. And it started off with all of the workers getting together and choosing somebody to represent them in their ways of basically sorting out rent, sorting out how much food or what they were going to need. Sometimes it's just one person representing them. Other times there were a council, or the council of elders that was not part of the main lord of the manor's land family. They weren't part of the elders' community of council for the workers, or the common folk. But after choosing that person or elders representing, they would end up gathering all of the grains, everything that they ended up planting, getting the animals ready for, one of the best ones to act as the sacrificial lamb, or the scapegoat ritual, which basically represented taking all of the sins from the land, sins of the people, and giving thanks to the effigy that was part of the land. And usually they would end up having chosen the youngest girl out of the community, or one of the girls that was more popular, to become the Harvest Queen. Now, she had the honor to carry one of the sacred objects that represented the effigy of the land, which can either be the harvest spirit that they would make a corn dolly from, and corn dollies are a common thing that you hear for Mabon, and they represented the effigy of the land. It was depicted to be either male or female, but there's an interesting fact that I end up finding out. Oh, sorry. That corn dollies were not originally made from corn husks. They were made from the grains of wheat, buttery, mill, oat, and later, when the tradition was brought from Europe, which did not originate in Europe, archaeologists found that they dug up in ancient Egypt and have evidence of the corn dolly that they found. And this corn dolly can be seen at the Reconnaissance Museum in San Jose, California. They had purchased the corn dolly from the archaeologists. They do lend this artifact out to different museums, but it always returns back to its original home, which is San Jose. And the corn dolly, when it was made back then, the first one was made from the first offering that the landowner or the lord of the manor would give as the first strife, and it usually is a bundle of oats, or depending on which was plentiful when they had harvest. And it would be the first corn dolly that was made would be given to the harvest queen for her to take around, carry this corn dolly around, have its own personal plate at the harvest festival feast every time. So every night, this harvest queen and the reaper would walk the corn dolly to its seat, place in its seat, give it its food, its wine, and until the harvest queen said everyone else may eat, then that's when everyone else could partake, get their nutrients, and become a little stronger to continue gathering and harvesting everything that still needed to be harvested, or slaughter any animals that needed to be salted and kept ready for winter. Mind you, the best animals that were either one they had impregnated for the next year would be stored away and kept safe in the barn, or sometimes even back then, if people didn't have a barn, they would be kept in their house with them, because you did not want to let this animal that was going to provide you their offspring for next year to get cold and also not starve. They would also end up getting ready to plant bulbs and anything that can stand the harsh winter to be given life when the spring equinox. Also, the term hip hip hooray came from the British form of the presentation of the corn dolly being carted on its own personal parade float, having minstrels and bards singing and praising the corn dolly through the town. Now imagine you yourself being that corn dolly, getting all that attention, just to appease the spirit that has transferred from the old corn dolly from the previous year. After a whole day has happened, when the new corn dolly is made and allowed the effigy spirit to transfer into its new home, they would burn the old corn dolly because it outgrew. It has grown into something new, because it does not look the same, or not even dress the same, because they did dress these dollies up with ribbons, and even some corn dollies were dressed in fine jewelry and silks. It just depended on what the harvest queen said she felt. And normally the reason why they end up making a young girl, be Harvest Queen is because they're still more in tune and aligned with nature. They have not lost their sense of justice. It's not that they haven't lost it. People still have it. It's just, it's less corrupted. Another thing that they did back then was, that I mentioned earlier, was the Reaper. The Reaper is now chosen either to be one of the elders out of the community, or one of the men, or young man, because sometimes they were as young as, from my information I got, it was about as young as 14 to 18 standards now, but back in the day, people were getting married at age 10 because they didn't understand that you might live a long life if you took care of yourself. Also, we have the stories being told to the younger kids from the elders. They were stories of your ancestors and how they came to be in this place, or even the most popular myths and folklores of the area. Some end up discussing and retelling the story of Demeter and Persephone, or Kor, as some people know Persephone, on how Persephone was taken down into the underworld by Hades. And the reason why she goes back is because she had 6 pomegranate seeds. And that's one of the reasons why we have fall. Another popular tale that gets told is Isis and Osiris. These two stories go very well with Mabon because it teaches us loss, love, and survival amongst everything, and being aligned one with yourself. Having that survival is what they felt was the best message to keep passing along, and I think that I would actually agree. Being able to survive anything in life will make you appreciate it a lot more. Now, other than, some awesome, things that they had in the past, like celebrating for 3 weeks straight on something, well, some of us aren't that young anymore. So, that's probably not the best thing to do. But, now getting into the modern ways of Mabon, there's different ways celebrated depending on what form you practice or you believe in. Now, one of the most major ways that has been celebrated, and some people do know, it's a thing that a group of pagans started, and they borrowed the name from the Gay Pride Parade, but they call it Pagan Parade. Or Pagan Pride, sorry. But both communities, tongue-tied, my bad. Both communities believe that you have to choose something with an open mind, open heart, and believe in what you are trying to accomplish. But the first Pagan Pride was successful in 1998, and it was held in 14 different communities throughout the United States and 1 in Canada. Now, mind you, this was with a whole, regalia of handing out lots of food baskets to whoever came. But they also got non-pagans to come to this and get communication going. They didn't mind that they had a lot of different other religions trying to convert people there. They were just nice enough to say, hey, you want to discuss about whatever? Let's talk. Let's have an honest communication. And it's been happening for quite some time now. They still do it. It's just very, if you know kind of deal. You will go to it. And some people have gone to it without realizing they have. But other things that we ending up not realizing, and we're just thinking we're going there to party, is one of the bigger, well-known versions of the fall equinox, Oktoberfest. Oktoberfest was originally created for a king that was about to remarry, and he wanted to have a grand celebration. And he realized that the day that his celebration was happening was also on a Sabbath day. So he said, fine, let everybody come. We'll be merry, and lots of blessings will come upon my house, because I wasn't selfish and shunned the Sabbath. Well, now it's probably one of the most popular festivals that people go to. Another one that is kind of a little out there that people don't realize that it's part of the autumn equinox, Yom Kippur, is very much so. The Jewish teach their children to be mindful and carry the lessons of the past onto their future. And one of the main things that Mabon does teach us is we have to learn how to let go of some things in our past in order for us to grow into a better person. And yes, growing into a better person sounds nice and dandy, but it's difficult. Us as humans, we're trained to be a bit stubborn. Another modern ritual would be the Druids that celebrate. The modern Druids would celebrate the Alien Ephod, which loosely translates to the light of the water. And as we all know, there is no life, there is no us without having water. Because we're, 98% water? Well, depending on who you are. I know Vicks is like 99% coffee, because Vicks can't live without it. Neither can I, but that's besides the point. Traditional witchcraft has done private practices and acknowledge the autumn equinox to their own way and their family. Neo-pagans and eclectic witches take the traditions that they are most fond of to create their own personal Mabon. Celtic witches will end up celebrating the fall equinox with the feast of Avalon, which translates to the land of apples. That they will end up going apple picking, apple bobbing, and everything. And this is where a version of the corn dollies comes in, which is the apple doll. Now you have your Italian witches, the Stregas, that celebrate, oh Lord, Antonio Festivo, which is the autumn equinox, and they celebrate with every fruit must be turned either preserved, pickled, or made into some form of bread, and just to make sure that they have plenty. Now you have the heathens, and the heathens, their form of giving thanks is very much, they pick one family out of their community, tribe, however you want to call it. They pick one family. They bring their offers. First of all, they bring several different offerings, but the first one that they start with is their offerings to Odin. After that, they make their offerings to goddesses, then the rest of the gods. Then they feast, and by when they feast, they are feasting. Afterwards, the lady of the house that the celebration was placed at brings out the drinking horn. Now, the drinking horn will ending up being filled until the last drop is consumed. And if there's still more people that need to do, they either take a vow, make a vow, or ending up thanking their ancestors for helping them conquer the year and asking them for blessings for the winter, so they are provided with everything that they need. Now, some modern heathens will end up still taking the old tradition of heathenry and becoming betrothed to the woman that they want, or betrothing their sons or daughters away. This was the moment that they basically said, hey, you're grown enough. You're about to end up causing to procreate and bring more little heathens into this world. And other people feel and ending up talking about that Mabon is just Thanksgiving. Yes, it is. But unlike North American Thanksgiving that is celebrated in November, we'll go with the Canadian one and celebrate in September. But in the end, whether you still practice the old ways or the modern ways, this celebration is for you to understand, to let go what you need to let go and grow from what you've learned throughout the year. Hopefully y'all enjoyed, and next week I will ending up talking about other rituals, prayers, recipes that were commonly used during Mabon. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Remember, got any questions, or if I missed anything, hit us up at randomwitchcraft@gmail.com. Sorry, a little scatterbrained today, but have a wonderful day.
Just one more thing before we sign off for the day. If you would like to send us any comments, concerns, or any questions, or if you would like to support this podcast, or for any future endeavors, click the links below. Thank you.